Inside a vast industrial workshop, machines hum under bright lights as skilled hands handle materials that come from one of the oldest animal lineages on Earth. These creatures existed long before humans built cities. Yet today, their legacy appears in an unexpected place, the modern luxury market. At first glance, the setting looks like any high-end manufacturing facility. Stainless steel tables, precision tools, strict quality controls. But the materials moving through this space tell a much older story, one shaped by rarity, regulation, and centuries of craftsmanship. Here's the question that stops most people in their tracks. How can a single processed hide end up worth more than a luxury car? The answer isn't just about beauty or status. It's about extreme scarcity, complex international laws, and the difficulty of working with a material that leaves no room for mistakes. One small flaw can destroy its value entirely. Only a fraction of sourced material ever meets luxury standards. For collectors and elite brands, the price reflects more than the object itself. It represents legality, documentation, heritage skills, and access to something most of the world will never touch. This is not just a story about luxury goods. It's a story about how time, regulation, and human demand can turn an ancient natural material into a modern symbol of exclusivity and controversy. Turtles have survived on this planet for more than 200 million years, outlasting mass extinctions and dramatic climate shifts. Long before modern industry existed, their shells were already valued by human societies. Across different cultures and time periods, turtle-based materials became symbols of refinement, patience, and skilled craftsmanship. They were shaped by hand into decorative objects, tools, and luxury goods reserved for elites. What made these materials special was never speed or scale. It was difficulty. Turtle shells and related materials are naturally irregular, fragile, and slow to source. Working with them required experience, restraint, and time. In many historical settings, ownership signaled not only wealth, but access to specialized artisans and rare natural resources. Today, that history collides with a very different world. Modern conservation science, international wildlife protection laws, and shifting public values have dramatically changed how turtle-based materials are viewed. Strict regulations now control or prohibit their trade, making legally available material extremely rare. As supply shrank, demand from collectors and luxury markets did not disappear. Instead, prices climbed, and scrutiny intensified. This transformation turned turtle-based luxury items into some of the most controversial objects in the high-end market. They now sit under constant legal review, ethical debate, and public attention. Every piece must be documented, verified, and justified, not just for quality, but for compliance with global standards. This topic matters today because it reflects a broader shift in how luxury is defined. Heritage craftsmanship still holds value, but it now competes with transparency, responsibility, and sustainability. The story of turtle-based materials reveals how modern luxury is no longer just about owning something rare. It's about explaining why it exists, how it was made, and whether it should exist at all. For centuries, turtle shells and related materials were sourced and shaped using methods passed down through generations. Artisans valued these materials for their natural patterns and warm tones, using them in fine art objects, personal accessories, and decorative elements for wealthy patrons. Each piece was worked slowly by hand, with results that reflected both the material's limitations and the maker's skill. That historical approach no longer defines the industry. Today, the legal landscape has completely reshaped how turtle-based materials can exist in the market. International wildlife protection agreements and national laws now sharply restrict or prohibit harvesting. As a result, modern production relies almost entirely on tightly regulated systems, certified legacy stock, or historically sourced materials that predate current restrictions. Every step must be documented to meet compliance standards. Once legally approved material is available, preparation becomes the most delicate phase. Turtle-based materials are highly sensitive to temperature, moisture, and pressure. Specialists carefully clean and stabilize each piece, slowly removing impurities while controlling humidity to prevent cracking, warping, or long-term decay. This process alone can take weeks. Precision processing follows. Unlike flexible leathers or modern composites, turtle shell material behaves unpredictably. Cutting requires specialized tools and steady pressure. Shaping and polishing must account for uneven thickness and natural fractures. One miscalculation can permanently damage the piece, eliminating its value. Only after surviving these stages does the material enter its final transformation. Finished sections are integrated into luxury items such as decorative panels, fine inlays, or collector-grade accessories. At this point, the material is no longer raw. It becomes a symbol of technical mastery, legal complexity, and historical continuity, shaped as much by modern regulation as by traditional craftsmanship. In the luxury world, value is often shaped less by size and more by scarcity. Turtle-based materials are a clear example of this rule. Because legal supply is extremely limited, even small, usable sections can command prices that seem disproportionate to their physical dimensions. In some cases, the cost of properly documented material increases hundreds of times compared to more common luxury inputs. What makes this market even more selective is how unforgiving the material can be. A single crack, discoloration, or structural weakness can dramatically reduce value or render a piece unusable. Unlike mass-produced materials, there is no way to blend or hide flaws. This means that only a small fraction of available material ever reaches a quality level acceptable for high-end use, further tightening supply. This scarcity-driven pricing model is not unique. Similar patterns appear in other luxury categories, such as exotic leathers, rare hardwoods, or limited edition gemstones. In each case, restrictions, slow regeneration, or legal oversight reduce availability. As supply narrows, craftsmanship and verification become more important than volume. What has changed in recent years is what buyers are willing to pay for. For many collectors and luxury brands, documentation now carries as much weight as visual appeal. Provenance records, legal certifications, and clear ownership history often add more value than larger size or more dramatic patterns. Without that paperwork, even visually striking material may be unsellable. In this market, value is built on trust. Buyers are not just purchasing a luxury object. They are purchasing certainty that the material meets legal standards, ethical expectations, and long-term investment criteria. That shift helps explain why some of the smallest, most carefully verified pieces can be among the most expensive in the luxury world. Quality control in this sector goes far beyond appearance or craftsmanship. Every material must pass through multi-layer verification systems designed to ensure compliance with international wildlife protection laws. Documentation is checked at multiple stages, often involving independent auditors, government records, and historical ownership proof. Without this verification, materials cannot legally enter the luxury market, regardless of their quality. As regulations have tightened, the industry has adapted. Many manufacturers now rely on certified archives and legacy collections, materials sourced decades ago and preserved under controlled conditions. Others turn to antique recycling, carefully reclaiming material from historical objects and repurposing it for modern use. This approach allows artisans to maintain traditional aesthetics while avoiding new environmental impact. Claims are no longer taken at face value. Proof is expected, and reputations can change quickly when standards are not met. Over the long term, these forces are redefining what exclusivity means. Luxury is no longer based only on rarity or cost. It is increasingly tied to responsibility, compliance, and credibility. Regulations, once seen as obstacles, are now shaping a new model of value, one where ethical accountability is part of what makes a product truly rare. Turtle-based luxury materials tell a story that stretches across centuries. They come from a time when rarity alone defined value, when craftsmanship and access to natural resources were enough to justify exclusivity. That era, however, now collides with modern ethical expectations and strict legal standards that govern how wildlife-related materials can exist in the global market. Today, the high value of these materials is no longer based on appearance alone. It reflects layers of complexity, extreme scarcity, international regulations, and constant global scrutiny. Every piece carries not just the mark of an artisan, but the weight of documentation, compliance, and public accountability. In many ways, The rules surrounding these materials are as valuable as the materials themselves. This shift reveals something larger about the luxury industry as a whole. Consumers are no longer satisfied with beauty or price as the only measures of worth. They want to understand origins, legality, and impact. Luxury brands are being asked to explain not just what they sell, but why it deserves to exist in a world increasingly focused on sustainability and responsibility. Looking forward, the future of luxury may depend less on rare hides and more on how stories of rarity are told. Heritage still matters. Skill still matters. But transparency, ethics, and long-term thinking now shape value just as strongly. The most exclusive luxury items of tomorrow may not be defined by how rare their materials are, but by how responsibly their histories can be proven and shared.